grader became a real superhero. He knew exactly what to do when his school bus driver had a heart attack behind the wheel.
In the small town of Milton, Washington, south of Seattle is where it's located. Bill Whitaker reports the 13-year-old was on the middle school bus yesterday when he and a classmate saved the day.
7th grader Jeremy Whitchick was a few rows back.
It's funny, he's shaking, his arms are flailing, his eyes are bulging, and he's making this weird rasping noises with his mouth.
It was scary and exhilarating. I mean, you want to know if he's okay, but then again, it's just happening so fast.
My name is Frank Dacca. I graduated from high school here at Fife in 1965.
I came in 1985 from Eastern Washington, saw that people were not taking care of what I thought it was the school history. We remodeled a couple of different times. One room was a girls' bathroom that was upstairs, full of books. Old textbooks from the 30s and the 40s, and they were just stacked in there, piled high, and I mean, you could hardly get through. They took these books, everything that was in this bathroom, dark of night, threw them, no, don't film that. Threw them in the truck and took them to the dump. But in the process, I went through everything and did what I was supposed to do. I found books that teachers who were there had when they were students. Pictures. I found a small plaque to the veterans of World War II, and that's here at the museum still. It was so much fun. While I was there, I made a box for every graduating year. So like if you graduated in 2004 and you were going to have a class reunion, I could go and pull this paper box. And it had every bulletin, every every program, every sport picture, everything in it that I could collect for that whole year.
The students, for all practical purposes, you know, we joined a class in kindergarten, and we're having our 50th graduating class this year from 1965.
1899 was the first school. And it was in a woodshed. There was one teacher and one wooden schoolroom. And the holes in the floor were so big that if you dropped your pencil, it would roll, fall through the cracks, and there was a creek that ran under the school. And the pencil would float away, never to be seen again. The first high school classes started in 1912. 1914. So we were the first school in the area to have high school. This was the manual training room. Downstairs was a shop and a home ec room with stoves, and this was the heating source. May, June 1916 is the first graduating class. And there was only 2 girls. Started off with like 5, but the boys didn't finish. In 1920 is the first of the Fifonians, which is the student newspaper that they did. This was high school. Reading these is so much fun because they are so silly and their jokes are so dumb and their student writing is so bad. Teachers ought to look what kids wrote in the 20s and they'd be so impressed with how much better. In the really early days, every class did a play. And those were, it's so fun to read. We weren't called the Trojans. We didn't get to be the Fife Trojans until 1929. They had these really cool sports programs, which we don't have today. We went to all-state football games. Back in the 30s and the 40s, we had one coach the whole time. His name was Bill Vincent. He coached almost everything. He took every team that Fife ever had. Football, basketball, baseball. They won all kinds of state, local, district championships. And the wrestlers were really good. We had a lot of little Japanese guys who were quick and fast. So the lightweight classes we dominated. The heavy classes we dominated because of the Swiss. They were these big boys who went out and milked cows every morning.
Women's sports did not really come into fruition until the late 70s, I think, for
Title IX, yeah.
Title IX. My mother graduated in 1940, and they did have a team, but they only had a half court.
I have a picture of a girls' basketball team from 1921.
And everybody participated in some kind of athletic event.
The community was really involved in the school. They had poker parties. They smoked cigars in the school. I couldn't believe it. There's a story of one principal putting on an apron and serving tea and cookies to a bunch of women. Somebody would go around and collect the high school kids, and then they would drive all the way into stadium.
So it was a very cultural, diverse group, very involved in the school. You really formed some really close relationships with your classmates in school.
Every class from 1935 about until 1980, 1981, they made scrapbooks. They would go and take pictures. Everybody had their own way to save their memories. And some teachers would cut up the annuals and make collages of the senior class. Waylon. It turns out this man taught band and orchestra here in 1938 and 1939 and went on to become very, very famous.
Tib Houston was 6'7", basketball player in 1931. And people would come from all around, from Seattle and Eatonville and Port Angeles to see somebody. That he was a giant.
Yeah.
And he was a fantastic basketball player. Went on to play baseball as a pitcher for the New York Yankees, and this is a graduate of Fife High School.
Kevin Ringus, he didn't have any interest when he graduated from high school, but now he's totally involved, wants to see the history saved, doing the 100-year anniversary.
My dad, he graduated in 1932. Hundreds of men that worked here always, called us Dacca University because that's where you were taught the ABCs and a lot of good interchange, and they all respected my father, who treated him, very fairly. I really appreciate Pat's strong interest. She didn't graduate from Fife, but with having been in the librarian there and in the library for what?
30 years.
30 years,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to tapping into her knowledge about the school district. You never know your hometown until you go far away. The working hard part, that's always got ingrained in me.
And they did put a Volkswagen upstairs in the school.
Yeah, and I will not, I was on the scene, but I did not take part, but